All right, guys, what you are looking at, it's an iceberg meme. Yes. Apparently, this meme format is huge amongst the kids and things like that. So I figured I would do one for week 3. Basically, what it is, kind of like an iceberg. You can only see a little bit above water, and then there's so much underneath. I kind of moved that into the college football realm, where all of the stuff at the top, that's the stuff everyone's talking about. And then as you get deeper and deeper and lower, that is the stuff that people really can't see. And we're going to talk about all these topics and kind of unveil some things throughout this iceberg meme. I think I'm going to do this every Sunday. So this is the week 3 iceberg meme. So the stuff above the water, the stuff that everyone's talking about, Penn State possibly being a top 10, a top 15 team after their major win against Auburn. I'm personally not there yet. I thought Penn State was extremely disrespected when they were left off the initial preseason top 25, but I do believe that Sean Clifford limits their overall ceiling. I think they're a lock to lose to Michigan, considering that's a road game for them, and I do think they will certainly lose to Ohio State, even though it is at home. By the way, guys, we were making fun of Penn State for picking their whiteout game versus Minnesota, but if Minnesota keeps winning, that is going to be a huge whiteout game, Penn State versus Minnesota, and Penn State could come out of this looking like geniuses, because if you beat Minnesota in a whiteout, which, let's be honest, you should, they're more talented, you would think that would be bigger for recruiting than losing to Ohio State in a whiteout or whatever. So Penn State, I would say they're not a top 10 team yet, but that was a major win for the Big Ten over the SEC. Next, we've got Auburn is dead. I completely agree with this. You know, you see what happened. Auburn, 3-point underdogs at home. You lost to Penn State last year. Now you get swept. You get blown out. There is no hope for this program. Their recruiting keeps getting worse and worse. Of course, you have to contend with the in-state recruiting of a team like Alabama. It's horrible. They need a new coach. I don't know what the current buyout situation looks like there, but it's getting really ugly for Auburn. Next, we've got ranked Washington. Of course, Washington, the major win over Michigan State. They will certainly be ranked. The game was not nearly as close as the score. I think the final score was like 39-28. That was a complete blowout. Washington from the get-go destroying Michigan State at home. They were 3.5-point favorites. A lot of people thought Michigan State was really undervalued. A lot of analytics thought Michigan State should have been 5 or 6-point favorites. I will give Michigan State fans credit. They were saying, listen, the first 2 weeks have not been great for Michigan State. Not many people were paying attention because they were facing bad teams, but we could see, that pass defense is horrifically bad. They were last in the FBS last year. They're still really bad this year. We saw that. Next, we've got Michigan State is done. I covered that. I think Michigan State losing to Washington. You've got Michigan on the road. You've got Ohio State. You've got Penn State on the road as well. So for Michigan State, it's going to be very tough. They're looking at a minimum of 4 losses. If you are a Michigan State fan, you're hoping for 8-4. You just don't want that 7-5 season. But I think at Michigan, very tough to win that game. At Penn State, very tough to win that game. Versus Ohio State, probably a big noon game. Very tough to win that game. You're looking at 8-4, best case scenario, unless you can upset one of those teams. Miami, no wide receivers. Guys, it's crazy. I cannot believe Miami with their whole NIL thing. You go into the season with this, week of a wide receiver core for Tyler Van Dyke. We saw what USC did. They basically went out and bought Jordan Addison. Why didn't Miami try and do the same thing with a playmaker at a smaller school? It's crazy. That game was there to win. Texas A&M has massive quarterback issues. They're starting someone, who's barely played for the university. That's a game you can easily win against A&M. A&M does not have the offense. The problem is Miami just has no playmakers. They end up losing 17-9. Wow, what a missed opportunity that was for Miami. Notre Dame 6-6. Yes, guys, everyone thinks Notre Dame, you're going to lose a minimum of 5 games this year. They've got a decent defense, but just a horrifically bad offense. Tyler Buckner out for the year. California is not a good team. And they were losing at home 17-14 going into the fourth quarter. They end up winning, not covering the spread again at home 24-17. So they get a win. Marcus Freeman improves to 1-3 in his coaching career, but that's rough. And then we've got Georgia, number 1 team in the nation, not just for crushing South Carolina, but because of what Oregon did. Oregon, handily beating BYU. BYU coming into that game as a very, very highly regarded team. Now it looks like, Georgia's just so good that it's not that Oregon is bad, for losing to Georgia 49-3. It's just that Georgia is so much better than everyone else. That's what it looks like right now, guys. But trust me, it's disgusting what's going on with those two programs. Now, what's the stuff under the surface? Maybe, if you're just paying attention to the headlines, you're just watching the big games, you didn't see this stuff. Ohio State's offense was ridiculous. I think they scored touchdowns on 11 of their 12 drives, 740 yards of total offense, 77 points. That's a 70 burger for the Buckeyes. CJ Stroud, 5 passing touchdowns, 5 incompletions. Cade Stover, the tight end, mini Gronk. Cade Stover is crazy, guys. Ohio State getting JSN back, getting Julian Fleming back. This offense is ridiculous. Trevion Henderson did get banged up. Looks like he's going to be okay going into the Wisconsin game this week. That's the 7:30 ABC matchup, Wisconsin at Ohio State. South Florida completely chokes. So, guys, I was watching this game live on the ACC network. I had the over. It looked like a lock to go to overtime. South Florida's center muffs the snap. It goes way behind him. The quarterback falls on the ball. They were in chip shot field goal range. It ends up being 4th and 20, 50-yard field goal, misses. Florida ends up winning 31-28. Crazy, crazy game. Wake Forest survives against Liberty. If I am Wake Forest and I am Sam Hartman, I am pissed at my administrative department for scheduling Liberty. They're always a scrappy team. You shouldn't be scheduling a team like that. But guys, Wake Forest is a fraudulent team. They should not be a top 25 team. They are completely one-dimensional. Sam Hartman led Wake Forest in rushing in their game against Liberty. 8 carries for 11 yards. That team's not a top 25 caliber team. Come on, folks. Kansas State blows it. Kansas State, the darling. They were kind of everyone's dark horse to go to a New Year's Six Bowl, and they lose a home game to Tulane. And maybe another point should be Tulane is underrated. Tulane is actually really good. Tulane football is impressive this year, but Kansas State, no offense. Adrian Martinez, more of the same. We saw it at Nebraska. He's just not a good quarterback, folks. It's been 5 years at this point, and Kansas State loses 17-14 as 14-point favorites at home. Wow, that's bad. You can't lose. If you're going to make a New Year's Six Bowl as a dark horse underdog, you cannot lose games like that. There's no chance now. There's just no chance. Maryland over SMU. So kind of a low-key, under-the-radar win for the Big Ten. Maryland gets a big win over SMU. They overcome like 100 yards in total penalties. Good for Maryland, improving to 3-0. SMU is a solid team. Very, very good win for Maryland. They will be at Michigan. That's the big noon game next week. So it's going to be tough for them, but still, that's a win. That takes Maryland from 6-6 to 7-5, maybe 8-4 if you get lucky. That's the type of win. That's like a changer. That's a game that could go either way. You're probably not going to beat Michigan. You're not going to beat Ohio State. You're not going to beat Penn State, probably. But against SMU, if you win that game, that gets you one more win. That's a very, very good win for Maryland. Rest in peace to Marshall. So Marshall beats Notre Dame last week on the road. They're everybody's darling. They've got another road game, this time at Bowling Green. And folks, they lost to Bowling Green. in overtime, 31-28. This game was on NFL Network. Wow. Very interesting there. Colorado, no. Colorado is the worst Power 5 team in college football. It's not even close. I feel like I have to also shout out Minnesota and their two-headed monster running backs. It's amazing what Minnesota's doing. They might be ranked this week, although let's not take too much stock into them beating Colorado. I think 49-7. They easily covered the 27-point spread. Colorado is horrifically bad. They are worse than most Group of 5 teams. That's how bad Colorado is. Iowa is Iowa. So Iowa last night, in the most Iowa way possible, is up 17-0 in the third quarter. Completely boring game. We get a weather delay. They come back out. They run a play. We get another weather delay. They try and play again. It's more lightning, so there's another weather delay. They end up starting the game at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and they win 27-0. Iowa is so boring, they're actually entertaining. That's how amazing it is. And every week I'm interested to see the over-under that gets set for the Iowa football game. They're so boring, they've become entertaining. It's great for the sport. Amazing. Syracuse-Purdue, the fourth quarter. So this was the noon game on ESPN2. Syracuse and Purdue. There was no offense. Everyone was shocked. Then in the fourth quarter, these two teams combined to score 42 points. Syracuse gets the win. Heartbreaking loss for Purdue. If you want to go 8-4, if you want any chance at 8 wins and you are Purdue, you lose the heartbreaker week 1 Thursday night game against Penn State. You lose the heartbreaker here, you're pretty much screwed at this point, sitting at 1-2. Although you are in the Big Ten West, but you're probably going to lose to Wisconsin. You're probably going to lose to Minnesota at least. And then we'll see against a team like Iowa and stuff like that. So really entertaining fourth quarter. 22-20 was the final score of the fourth quarter. The actual final score was 32-29. Syracuse ended up winning on a late touchdown. Next, we've got Indiana advancing to 3-0. Who would have thought? Indiana, I think they had 2 wins all of last year. Now they're 3-0. Good for them. They end up coming back. This was the noon game on Big Ten Network. They come back and beat Western Kentucky when Western Kentucky really controlled that entire game. Western Kentucky does end up covering the spread plus 6.5. They really should have won the game outright, but good for Indiana getting the win. Clemson is broke, so guys, a lot of people may not see it. They end up beating Louisiana Tech, I think 48-20. But that game was close in the third quarter. This coming a week after Clemson was outgained by an FCS program. I'm sure Clemson is going to remain a top 16 in terms of the AP poll, and nobody's going to bat an eye. But guys, this team needs a quarterback change. They got to start the true freshman 5-star. This is just ridiculous. Their program is broke. Every week they look lackadaisical on offense. They need life. Will Shipley, possible Christian McCaffrey 2.0. I'm not saying that because he's white. But he's an interesting little running back there. And then the final thing, this is the Mecca. This will be brought to light. The Georgia-Oregon pure collusion that happened week 1 between Dan Lanning and Kirby Smart. The kind of sham neutral site game that took place in Atlanta, Georgia. That game is actually more meaningful now because Georgia crushed Oregon, and now we know Oregon is looking so good. It's horrible collusion. It will be brought to light. A lot of college football fans are ignorant to this. It will come up. That's why it's at the way bottom of the iceberg. You can't see it. You cannot see it right now. It's in such deep depths of the ocean. When you get down in the ocean, it gets black, right? They say that because the sunlight stops coming through. So that's where this whole thing is right now. We're bringing it to light, guys. It's amazing. But guys, that is my official college football iceberg, the meme for week 3. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.